Look out! Here come former SportsCenter anchor Bob Stevens, esteemed basketball coach Rich Basirico, and Hall of Fame sports writer Curry Kirkpatrick. And someone's going under the bus.
I'm going to throw all of us under the bus right off the top here. We, of course, are brought to you by Hudson's on the Docks, a great restaurant on Hilton Head Island. Kind of chilly right now. In fact, I think they're going to shut it down for like a week or so and let the cold front get through it and then reopen. But you can find out more about them for when you come down in the spring and summer at hudsonsonthedocks.com. All right, we're going under the bus right off the top for taping this show, doing this show. It doesn't matter when we do it, but we happen to be doing it during the biggest game of the NBA season. There will not be a bigger game played all year. If it was Knicks and Celtics, we wouldn't be doing this. If it was Duke and Carolina, we wouldn't be doing this. But it's Oklahoma City and Cleveland, and
we're doing it.
Nobody cares, right?
I care. Who's winning?
Well, Bob, it's your Cavs. It's your Cleveland Cavs. I read. Somebody mentioned today that this game, both these teams have terrific records. They're on 15-game winning streak and 10-game winning streak, and the two combined records playing each other is the tightest game since 1972. A game where Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is playing Bill Russell or something like that. That somebody pointed that out.
How about that? Yeah, they're 61-9. These two teams.
Wow,
pretty darn good.
And like you said, nobody cares. Anyway, we'll got it on behind. If you're really good while you're watching this, you can see what's going on behind us. We're going to start, of course. It's been a while. We have not talked in a bit. Curry has finished his global travels and is back.
Well, I've been on IR for a long time.
Yeah, and you've also been there. Let's talk college football playoffs. The 1, 2, 3, and 4 teams all had 3 weeks off. They all lost. 5, 6, 7, and 8 are the 4 that are left, and they all had a home game and then a neutral site game. And so now we're left with Thursday night, Notre Dame, Penn State, Friday night, Ohio State and Texas. Thoughts on what's going on and what you expect to see before the weekend?
Well, before we start on those games, can I bring up the Texas-Arizona State game?
Sure.
Which was a terrific game. I mean,
it was.
Texas was totally in control of that game.
In America
ever. That's what I want to bring up. You got to be kidding. That's not targeting. What is targeting? Please explain that to me. I mean, he went head to head. How can you sit there and go, that's not targeting?
Under the bus of the entire officiating crew. That's where the SEC ought to just be quiet about everything, because they got the big call at the big time to save themselves. Otherwise, it'd be Arizona State in here and the SEC would be out.
Right. Arizona State should be there. They should be there. That was
every TV official, each network had a TV. Every TV official came out and said it was a terrible call, said it was obvious targeting. And the commissioner, the Big 12, of course, Arizona State's a Big 12 team, but he called for, quote, national standards be developed on targeting. I mean, targeting is targeting. You and I know what targeting is. It's so obvious. Yeah. Arizona State, and that game was the only really game in the whole playoffs that's been any good. The others were all blowouts. I mean, I think we might discuss this. I don't know if 12 teams is right, because with this system, you get buys, and every team that got a bye lost.
Right.
So, it proved that Rust didn't work. And I mean, if they cut it down to 8 teams, there'd be no buys. And I'm not sure we shouldn't do that. But of course, on the other hand, Arizona State and that incredible running back saved the whole thing, because every other game was kind of a blowout.
How about that? He threw a touchdown pass. He ran a short one, but it was set up by a reception he made that was a long play. And then he had another long touchdown. Also, he did everything.
He did.
Scatterbo.
All the
And
Cam
that's
scattered,
after
but
he
what
gets
is
thrown
Cam
up on the
Scattergood?
sidelines.
And meanwhile,
Scattergood,
he's
yeah.
throwing up. Meanwhile, he's
Right.
throwing up the whole time. It was great.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a one-man show. I read 284 yards. The guy accounted for. It was kind of like as the game went on down to the end there. It was the only game that kind of recreated March Madness for this football tournament
Mhm.
because
Yes.
all the rest of it was a total bore when you think
Yeah.
about it. And he saved the whole thing. He made it, viable to have 12 teams. So
Yeah.
I'm talking against
Curry,
myself.
I agree with you. I think they should go 8 teams, and that was, as you say, the only game that was worth watching. I mean, of
Except
course, you didn't know
then
which.
the SEC could only probably have four, if you had 8 teams.
Well, that's all right. That's all right.
But
But how
this
can I
way they're
mean?
thinking they could get 5 or 6.
But you know that
Well,
the coach from Arizona State handled it so well because afterwards they asked him, and he just says, "I just don't understand what targeting is." Then I mean,
yeah, yeah. You
nobody
wanted
does
to ask.
now. There's
You
nobody
wanted to ask.
understands what it
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
It's a
Well,
gutless when officials don't make a call at the end of the game because they think they're going to determine the outcome of the game. They are determining the outcome of the game. When you don't make the call, you have
That's right.
determined the outcome of the game. So it's I hate when officials do that. It just blows my mind. You watch a
Tell us a
basketball game, a
story,
guy
Rich.
drives to the basket, gets hammered, and there's no foul. Why?
Tell us a
Why?
story, Rich.
The story of what?
It happened to you, I'm sure, right?
Oh,
Late
yeah,
in the game,
of course, yeah, of
non-foul
course. It
call.
happens to everybody who's ever coached basketball. Late in the game, you got a guy that drive. You tell your players don't drive. Why not, coach? Because they're going to hammer you, and you're not going to get the call. You're not going to get the call, especially when you're on the road. When you're on the road, that unless the guy knocks you to the ground, steps you in the head, and you're bleeding from the nose, yeah, they'll call that foul. Other than that, forget about it. It's kind of sad.
well.
So
Meanwhile, with all this, we have probably the four biggest names in college football in the finals, which is kind of amazing when you think about it. But
Certainly 4 of the
I, you know,
biggest,
I
yeah.
read a I read a s- and for people who hate the Big Ten, of course, you can root against the Big Ten, which is me. And I'm not rooting for Texas
I'm
as
not
well.
either.
So that leaves only Notre Dame. And I just want to take a few seconds to say, I read a story the other day that said how Notre Dame has become likable because
Yeah.
everybody except for Catholics, everybody in America hates Notre Dame. And I know Rich, I know you followed Notre Dame, you love Notre Dame all your life, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
a little different. I grew up in St. Louis. I think I told the story, Rich, but I was raised to hate Notre Dame.
Raised.
My grandmother and
Me too.
grandfather were bigger sports fans than my parents. So I would go over on Saturday afternoon and my grandfather would listen to the Notre Dame on the
Mhm.
radio because there was no TV games then. But Notre Dame was always on the radio on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah.
And I'd sit with my grandfather. My grandfather would teach me to hate Notre Dame because he said, Curry, Notre Notre Dame cheats. They fake injuries so that people can. I mean, he just hated Notre Dame, and I know there was a big anti-Catholic vent to this, but that's how I grew up. So but now I'm in college, and I went with our football team to South Bend because we played Notre Dame. Of course, I walked into the stadium all by myself, all with nobody there on a Friday
Wow.
afternoon. And it was one of the great moments. I mean, to see Notre Dame Stadium. And I went and saw the statue and the whole thing and touchdown Jesus. And the fact that they are now among the Final Four and at the top of the game, I think it's great for football. I think it's great for college football.
Yeah. And they have become likable. Freeman, the coach, seems like a terrific guy.
Yeah.
They've
Yeah.
got, they're good. They play some defense, which I think all 4 of these teams actually play some defense, which is probably why they're the final 4 that are left. And it's interesting. None of these teams was a conference champion. I'm not sure a couple of them would have made the field if it were 8. Would all of these 8 have, or these 4 have made it? Probably.
No, well,
Yeah. Probably.
I think Notre Dame again was the biggest beneficiary of the 12 team settlement because, this guy Freeman has been a master of the portal. I mean, the transfers that he got, nobody talks about this, but Notre Dame got all their star players are transfers. He
Yeah.
got players, he got players from Duke and Clemson and South Carolina and Marshall and Northwestern and Arizona State. This is Freeman getting out of the portal. And a lot of people attribute, the likability to him. He seems like a terrific guy. On the television set this morning, the mouth of the South, the guy that Paul Feinbaum, who knows more about college football than I do, but they were talking about what would be the best champion, what would mean the most for a champion. And of course, everybody in the room said Notre Dame except Feinbaum. He said Notre Dame isn't that important, still isn't that important. He said it's still not a big deal. I mean, that is a foolish thing to say.
Right.
Don't you think?
Yes, absolutely. I just love after the game, Notre Dame game, the way the interviews went. Freeman was terrific, I thought. Even my wife, who doesn't follow football, listened to it, and she was really impressed with him. And just lost the quarterback. I forgot his name real quick.
Riley. Riley from the guy they got from Duke.
From Duke, right.
From Duke,
And
yeah.
he handled
terrific.
himself really well.
Terrific.
I thought they both were terrific in that. But, Freeman has surrounded himself with good assistant coaches. His defensive coordinator was the head coach, Al
Golden.
Golden.
Was at Miami,
He was the head coach at Miami,
Coach at Miami,
Temple, and then
coach
from
at
Temple,
Miami. Temple as well, yeah.
Yeah. So, he's twice the age of Freeman. He's in his 60s,
Yeah.
So when you surround yourself with good people, good things are going to happen. And he's a smart man for doing that.
Freeman
a lot
is
of young coaches
often,
would be threatened by having an older coach like that, but not him. So I give
Freeman
him
is
a lot of credit.
Freeman tells stories he's often mistaken for one of his players. It could be because he looks so young. He looks way younger than he is, but I was interested. There was a story when the media, the media is not allowed in the locker room after Notre Dame regular season games. Notre Dame has a rule, so they keep the media out. But at this game, of course, they were allowed in, and the media was stunned that the Notre Dame players were so emotional and so passionate in the locker room, and that's how much this game, meant to them.
Right.
And I think it's going to carry on against Penn State, which is, notably unlikable. I mean, we start with Franklin, the coach. He already at the press conference yesterday, he jibed Notre Dame because he called for conformity in college football. He said every team should be in a conference. Who he's talking about there.
Of course.
He said every conference should have schedules, same number of games, and blah blah blah. He's such a red ass, and he's so paranoid. And I loved when he said, after they got into the Final Four, he congratulated all his bosses, meaning the athletic director, the president of the university, the chairman of the board. And then he said, I have another boss. He said, sometimes they feel like I'm working for the media and all the bloggers. I work for them too. What an a-hole. I mean, come on. Are you kidding me? He's so paranoid. And of course, he's talking about everybody says he's never won the big game. And he maybe still hasn't. He still hasn't won the big game.
No,
SMU and Boise. They beat SMU and Boise to get to this thing. Yeah. So come on. I'm rooting heavily for the Irish in this game.
All right, Curry. I love it.
Kind of sounds like it there. How about in the Ohio State-Texas game?
I'm not voting for either team. I don't like either
Ohio
one.
State. Ohio State looks like the best team, of course. I mean, they've just rumbled, and of course they have that young receiver Jeremiah Smith, who he's not just all bowl, he's all pro. He looks like all pro already.
Yeah.
I mean, what a receiver this guy is. What he's got, he's in the 2 games he's got something like 300 yards receiving and 4 touchdowns, and he made mincemeat of Oregon in the first 5 minutes of the game.
Right. And he challenged them too. Didn't before the game, like the day before, he said, "If you're going to play man to man, we're going deep." I mean, he told them, "We're going deep.
Nobody can cover him." Yeah.
The problem is Ohio State hasn't read the fine print. If they beat Texas and if they beat Notre Dame, They still have to play Michigan again.
That's right.
So Michigan could still win the national title.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Anything else we want to talk about? I think I've pretty much exhausted my list on.
I want to throw one person under the bus. Can I do that?
Yeah.
College football, when Toledo played Pittsburgh in a bowl game, and they went into overtime.
Yeah.
Overtime. And now after was the second overtime, you have to go for a 2-point conversion. And Pittsburgh gets down to the 2-yard line, and then it's 3rd and 1 or 3rd and 2. Then they get 1 yard, so now it's 4th and 1. So now he's got to make a decision: go win the game, or kick a field goal. But now if you kick a field goal, now you have one play from the 3-yard line. But now you have a chance to win the game, 1 yard, 1 play, or 3 yards, 1 play, but they still get the ball too. So what does he do? He kicks a field goal. They go into overtime, and they lose. Now this is what the coach says. I have to read this. This is crazy. 4th and 1. You don't get it. You lose the game. No kidding. I don't want it to end like that. I want our kids to make the play. I want to put it in the kids' hands. For a coach to make a decision to win the game or lose the game, I'm not for that. He's making close to $7 million a year.
Yeah, how much is he making and how much are they making? Yeah.
Of course, he's put it in the players' hands. If he went from 4th and 1, it's in the players' hand. 1 down from the 3-yard line is in the players' hands. You don't want to make that decision, and you get paid. He's the 27th highest coach in America. He's making close to $7 million, and he doesn't want to make the call.
Is this guy a Pitt? Is this the Pitt guy?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Narduzzi. Yeah.
Narduzzi. Yeah.
Otherwise, been a pretty good coach. Yeah.
He is a good coach, but it doesn't make sense. You have 1 play to get 1 yard or 1 play to get 3 yards. Come on, let me figure this one out. That was so bizarre. I don't understand it. But I got
to. If we're going to go review the bowl games, I think there's some great funny stuff going on. But I got to double under the bus in the Cheez-It Bowl. I mean, how many people saw this?
Yes.
Brett Bielema of Illinois and our boy Baby Beamer of South Carolina got into it about all their called plays and putting in substitutes, and they were mad at each other the whole game. And finally, Beeman, Beeman, the South Carolina guy.
Oh, Beamer, yeah.
Put a trick play in. He had his punt receiver called a fake fair catch. He faked the fair catch, put his arm down, and passed the ball across the field to another South Carolina player for a big gain. Well, this, Bielema, this incensed Bielema. So at the next stoppage, an Illinois player was hurt. And Bielema, you've read this. Bielema walked all the way across the field and started taunting the entire South Carolina bench. And Beamer went nuts. Beamer went nuts, and his assistants had to hold him back, and they were going to fight. There was the game was delayed about 10 minutes. These two coaches were going to fight each other. It was hysterical. And Bielema was just smiling the whole time. I mean, he got in Beamer. Look at Beamer. Beamer was out of his mind. I mean, it was so stupid. And then, Illinois ended up winning. And after the game, everybody wanted to see the handshake. It was kind of a dull handshake. Sure. But then, they both went online for days afterward, bitching and moaning at each other. And Beamer said his ethics were questioned. And Bielema said, "Happy New Year."
That's a great line.
Both of those guys. I mean, Bielema looks like he's eaten every Cheez-It in about 10 states. And Beamer, nobody none of the coaches like this guy. He's very, like his attitude, and he's all these trick plays all the time. He considers himself a genius. And so, good riddance to both those guys.
Two other guys, or some other people who go under the bus for that whole game, are the officials who let Bielema get away with horribly late substitutions. There are rules now that if you sub on offense, the defense gets a chance to sub. They put a clock on it, in fact, at one point. Bielema was taking almost 30 seconds of the play clock. Play
Yeah,
clock's
well,
counting down, and
Yeah.
South Carolina can't snap the ball because the official is over it. And the guys doing the game were smart enough to say, they can fix that. If the referees walk away and say, go play, then Bielema will stop the slow substitutions. He was slowing it down intentionally, almost like a basketball coach with the four corners. And
of course, they're both taking advantage. They're both taking advantage of the rules. They got to change the rules. And another thing is, why didn't Bielema get? He should have got penalized for taunting. He taunted the whole South Carolina sideline.
He should be penalized for looking too much like the Wisconsin mascot. He was the guy. I think they made the Bucky Badger off of Bielema, who used to coach there.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. He should be penalized for that for sure. All right.
Well,
enough college football.
But isn't it interesting that players are taunted? Players are penalized for taunting in about 5 seconds. And they should have a coach's taunting rule. That's for sure. Yeah.
Didn't think you'd need it, but apparently in this case we do. Hey, we've got NFL playoffs to talk about. We've got a pro basketball game that's the game of the year, and of course it's in a commercial. We'll get to that in a moment as well, as we continue to throw people under the bus, brought to you by Hudson's on the Docks. Welcome back to Under the Bus. Bob Stevens along with Curry Kirkpatrick and Rich Basirico. We got about 3 different elements to talk about here with the NFL. Let's start with Wild Card Weekend. The NFL has, first of all, a little bit of news. The NFL has at least announced that if LA is still on fire on Monday, they could move the game between the Vikings and the Rams to Arizona and play it in Phoenix.
Okay.
So that could happen. That is the last of the games of the wild card weekend. Any great thoughts about Kansas City, who is off this week after being off last week too when they went to Denver?
Well, I have a thought about the last team that got in, or the team that's going to LA to play the Rams. That's the Vikings that played Detroit in the biggest game in the history of the NFL the other night that Detroit just wiped them out. Chris Collinsworth, I got under the bus him. He practically broke his back going backward, trying to not criticize Sam Darnold. I mean, the whole thing was Detroit geniuses and Aaron Glenn devising the strategy and one-on-one, and they were playing the receivers one-on-one. Sam Darnold was terrible.
The real Sam Darnold stood up.
He turned into the Jets Sam Darnold, the other Sam Darnold, the Carolina Panthers Sam Darnold. That's what he turned into.
Yeah.
And I mean, he made it a rout.
Well, think about this. Detroit gave up the week before to San Francisco 34 points because they got so many guys out defensively. So everybody thought Sam Darnold's had such a great year that they'd score 40 points or more. They were awful. Curry, the real Sam Darnold stood up.
I think you might be right, and I think it's going to hold over to next week. I'll be surprised if the Rams don't beat the Vikings easily now.
I think the Rams can win, absolutely.
I mean, Darnold was such a dog. I might wonder about signing him now. I mean, big game, and he just. I mean, I'm watching this. I'm going. Every pass he threw, Rich, was 30 feet high. I mean, he thought all his receivers were Wembanyama or something. I mean, it was unbelievable how high he was, how off he was off. Yeah.
He was bad.
Indeed. Any good upset? You see any upsets on this 6? Besides the Rams would technically be an upset, but it's almost a pick'em game now.
Yeah. I like Washington beating Tampa Bay.
I like that too.
Wow.
Yeah,
I'm a Baker Mayfield guy. I think he's got the magic. I think he won't take him any further than this, but he's got a win in him, just to stick it to Cleveland.
How about Green Bay beating Philadelphia?
No,
No one
I
happened.
don't like that. I don't like that. They said that
Didn't happen in Brazil. Not going to happen in Philly.
they said today that Hurts looked good at practice. So
Okay. All
there's
right.
been
So he's
talk.
playing then.
There's
He's
been
playing.
talk of him having still having head
Concussion
problems.
Right.
problems. Yeah.
Because he's still in concussion protocol, but that's not right, right? I think the Eagles have just been, quietly talking that down, and now
Yeah.
somebody said today he had a great practice, so he's ready to go. And Green Bay's missing their best receiver, right? He got hurt
Well,
last week.
that's right. That's right.
Watson.
You're right.
And
Watson.
and Love is still working with a bad hand.
Yeah.
He'll play, but
But
who
you
knows
know
how well.
Philadelphia's coach could screw them up. You know that.
That's true. That's true.
That's going to happen. That's going
I
to
love,
happen.
I love my Bills. I love my Bills. I don't think they're going to lose to Denver.
I was
And
going to
all
say
the
that's
other.
the one I like.
Really,
I like the
Denver
Broncos.
You
going
like the
into
upset there?
Buffalo and winning? Nah, I don't see that.
Maybe.
I don't see
I
it.
think that's as apt to be an upset as anything. Denver's on a roll, and Bo Nix, he's the man. He and Allen, that'll be really interesting to watch who plays better.
Yeah, Bo Nix is really, really good. And Sean Payton's a terrific coach. If anybody can come up with something against the Bills, he can. I just think Allen's too good, and they're going to be at home.
Yeah, I
et
agree.
cetera, et cetera. I wanted to know, with all these, I haven't been on, and we haven't done this for a couple weeks, but half the NFL coaching staff have been fired or rumored to be fired. I want to know and replaced. I want to know what Rich has to say about his beloved Giants going ahead and keeping their whole staff. And, Mara coming out and saying, I'm almost out of patience. He's almost out of patience. Isn't that what he said, Rich? Isn't that what he said, Rich?
He did. Yes.
What are you? What?
I'm going to tell you. I'm telling you why I think he kept them. He knows they're going to stink again next year. If you look at their schedule, there's probably not 3 games on that schedule that they can win. Seriously, they got to play Detroit. They got to play Green Bay. He's figuring, well, you know what? If we bring a new coach in, we're going to be going down the drain again. Let these guys drown, and I'll get rid of them at the end of the season.
And then he can not only have like maybe the first or second pick, but he can also go get Belichick from North Carolina, who's only got the buyout. The buyout at North Carolina is $1 million. That's all.
Which is penny change. Pocket change.
But this year, if he leaves, the story today was Brady was going to try to get him to come to Vegas, but the buyout's $10 million now.
Do you remember
that? The story is that Brady talked to him on the phone, but that doesn't mean anything. Come on, he's not going to go coach the Raiders.
No, he's already said he's not. He's already said he's staying at North Carolina. He's already
said well,
who cares
what he said? Go ahead.
You remember Belichick and Brady was not the happiest marriage in the time, particularly later on in their time in New England. No, Brady, I'm sure probably picked his brain. He said, "Is Vrabel worth it?" And then went on from there. But
that's all set up for Vrabel.
But New England's coach was fired 1 hour after they lost their game.
Well, that's because they want to get Vrabel. That's because they want to get Vrabel.
Yeah.
Vrabel had a good interview with the Jets, and Kraft is afraid Vrabel's going to go somewhere else. So he fired Mayo immediately.
So the interview with Vrabel and the Patriots is Thursday, and there'll probably be an announcement right after that, because the Patriots were also smart. They fire Mayo an hour after the game, and they've already made 2 minority interviews. So they've handled the Rooney Rule. So now they bring Vrabel in. Boom, done.
Well, that
looks like a lock. I thought it was interesting that so many coaches got fired and so many GMs kept their jobs.
What's that all about?
Tennessee is the only team that fired its GM and didn't fire the coach. But the Bears, the Raiders, the Jaguars, the Patriots, and the Saints all fired the coach but kept the GM. I don't get that.
But Rich, isn't the Giant fan base going to be in an uproar from the opening kickoff?
Yes.
I mean,
yes, without a doubt. They're already upset about it. No one understands why he wants to keep them. I mean, think about the last game of the season. The Eagles played their second string, right? They rested everybody, including Barkley, and we still couldn't beat them.
Yeah.
We still couldn't beat them. We got our fannies kicked. We're playing against their second string. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Bob, what's your boy Aaron Rodgers going to do?
Yeah, my boy Aaron Rodgers, he's done.
He's done. Yeah.
I mean, he's done. Well, he's done in New York. You know what? Somebody may come and get him. Maybe he ends up with the Raiders.
Well, he had a great last month. I mean, he can still play, and it sounds like he still wants to play. To me, I mean,
yeah,
you're right. Go to the Raiders and play. I mean, they don't have a quarterback.
Who does he? Who does he bring in as coach? He brought in his wide receivers. He brought in everybody else. Who does Rodgers want to be the coach of the Jets?
Well, he can bring in he can bring in that idiot that he brought in from Denver. That guy. Give him another job.
Yeah.
Hackett, and yeah.
But he had Hackett last year.
Well,
they took away him being offensive coordinator, right?
Yeah.
So yeah. He just made him assistant coach.
So you're Tennessee. Who do you take with the first pick?
I really don't think either quarterback should go.
Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders.
No, I don't want the Giants to draft either one of those guys.
Cam
they
Ward,
are not going to be the
Tennessee.
guys that can lead them into the playoffs.
Tennessee is going to get Cam Ward, the guy that sat out his bowl game, played the first half of his bowl game, and sat out. That's nice.
There's a guy under the bus. Yeah.
Really.
Sure. I'd rather them wait to the second round and draft maybe the quarterback from Syracuse or Mississippi. They're just as good as those two guys we just mentioned.
Cleveland has the second pick, and I think they'll take Hunter from Colorado and have him play 10 of the 11 defensive positions.
They're not going to take Shedeur Sanders. They're not going to take Shedeur Sanders, Bob. No. I think
they're still so underneath. I mean, they gotta bring what's his name back? Watson back. They got to bring him back. They'll be. The word is they're going to get Kirk Cousins for the same kind of thing that Pittsburgh did with
Russell Wilson.
Russell Wilson. Thank you. Yeah. And not have to pay him hardly anything because Atlanta still owes him a lot of money, and Atlanta will blow him up, and then the Browns can have, because Cousins used to work with the head coach in Cleveland. So that's the word up there.
Rich, the Giants draft third.
Yes.
Third.
Yes.
Well, they might get
a quarterback. Here's the problem: they need more than a quarterback. If they think they can solve their problems because they bring in a quarterback,
they can have Shedeur this year, and then they can get Dion next year.
I think they might draft the other guy from Colorado, the great two-way player. That's the Giants.
That's why I'm saying Cleveland gets him
at 2
with the second.
I don't know. But Cam Ward, by the way, Cam Ward, the game he set out was the Pop-Tarts Bowl. And if speaking of mascots, Bob, if you saw this, there was almost mascot cannibalism in this game because the Miami Ibis, Sebastian the Ibis, attempted to chomp down on the hot fudge sundae Pop-Tart. So that would have been a disaster. And I think Cam Ward might have helped stop that. So at least
Curry, how about the Mayo Bowl? The coach got from Minnesota got the
Mayo.
Yeah,
that happens. That happens there. That happens every year. The first Mayo Bowl that happened was South Carolina beat North Carolina, and Beamer got the mayo on his head.
Oh my God.
That's so tired.
I hate mayonnaise. If I was coaching, I would hope we would lose, so I wouldn't have to take that mayo.
You would throw that game?
Oh, I would. Just so I wouldn't have to have mayonnaise all over me. God knows.
Oh my goodness.
Can I go back, since we're back on the bowls?
Sure.
We're back on the bowls. Can I just go back to one bowl under the bus? Is the ESPN crew. Did you see this? He put it up there already. What bowl game was that?
He's got the Duke's Mayo.
No, this was the other one. I can't find it now. I had it. Go ahead. Talk about something else. I'll find this thing.
The one where they brought the stuff up to the booth and had all of the guys try the food.
I don't
and it
know.
was not good. 47 different ways to do an oyster or something. I don't know. It was
I didn't see
stupid.
that.
Hey, the
So-
Bulls are stupid. I think we can all agree on that. And yet the ratings for the Bulls were actually higher this year.
Wow.
Is
Go
that right?
figure. Yeah.
That's
People just
interesting.
couldn't get enough college football. They actually would watch these outrageously horrific games. Unbelievable. Back to the NFL. Any other great coaching thoughts, draft thoughts before we get ready for basketball? Because we'll take a break and we got to throw Tennessee under the bus in basketball.
For sure.
Let's
Well,
do
wait,
that.
can I do one more bowl thing? I know you guys saw this.
Certainly.
It was the Idaho Potato Bowl, and
okay.
the ESPN graphic guys made a blunder, and they turned the Fresno State Bulldogs into the Fresno State Bulldongs, and Bulldogs was up on the screen. Bulldogs was up on the screen for a lot of time. They kept it up there, and of course, they lost. They lost 28-20 in double overtime to the Northern Illinois Huskies.
Hey. Don't be picking on Northern Illinois. They're the ones that beat Notre Dame.
That's
No,
they
I
should be number
know.
one.
I know, but the Huskies.
They should be the national champs. Why aren't they in this Final Four?
Imagine the other possibilities if this ESPN crew started putting up stuff, and imagine the problems they have with Michael Penix Jr. They have a problem with his name, and Rick Pitino, of course.
They survived that for all the years that he was at Indiana and Washington. They got away with it, but nice job, Justin. Nice catch on that one. Hey, we're going to talk some college hoops. That's what these guys actually know. By the way, in the basketball game, for 3 seconds, it's Oklahoma City by 1, 3 minutes left in the half. Just trying to. It is as good a game as everybody said it was going to be. 1 point game. Great stuff. We're going to talk about a game that was not a 1 point game and also involved the number one team in the country. When we come back, we're going to throw somebody else under the bus. Brought to you by Hudson's on the Docks. Welcome back. Bob Stevens along with Curry Kirkpatrick and Rich Basirico. I would throw Rick Barnes under the bus any week, but let's use this one. Tennessee, number one in the country, the only unbeaten team left. They go to Florida, and they don't lose by 2 or 3. They don't lose by 8 or 10. They lose by 30. Curry, that has not happened to a number one team since 1968. You weren't even rooting for college basketball in 1968.
Oh, I saw the game. UCLA beat Houston in the semifinals of the NCAA tournament. Okay. That's what the 30-point game was.
That was the last 30-point game?
Last time a number one team got beat by 30. The game before, Florida went to Kentucky and got beat 106-100, a game I'm sure everybody watched. Great game, the best game in the season so far. Yep. And then, of course, Florida loses that, but they're a terrific team. I mean, Florida's one of, they're one of the 6 SEC teams in the top 12. I mean, this conference is ridiculous. I mean, really, in a season where the ACC is terrible, the Big Ten, nobody knows what's going to happen there except Michigan is really good. The SEC is just dominating these teams, and now they're playing each other. And of course, Florida loses to Kentucky, goes home, and they get the number one team coming in, Tennessee, and just destroy them. Tennessee had 15 points at the half. Shot what Rich? They shot 4 for 29 or something in threes, and it's funny to me because Tennessee's defense is so good. You would think that would have kept them in the game and kept them close.
Yeah.
But Florida has just retooled with some really good players. I mean, they have about 4 big guys who are interchangeable. And one of them, his name is Alex Kahn, and he's from Australia, and he's terrific. And then they got a transfer from Florida Atlantic named Elijah Martin, who gives them fierceness. And he was the leading scorer in the game. he's kind of their version of Zekai, the Tennessee guy, Zeke or whatever his name is. But they're really good. I mean, I've watched
Very
them two
good. They're
games now.
balanced.
Yeah,
Their
yeah,
balance of their team is terrific. I've watched them a couple of times. They can play. They get up and down the
yeah.
floor, and they defend well. Obviously, they run their pattern in their offense. They don't just come down and go 1 against 5. They play well together. They really do.
Early January, are they the best team?
I don't
Well,
know if
and
they're the best team, but I think they make it to the Final Four.
Florida?
I do.
Well, as long as their coach can keep from getting arrested and put in jail for his beating up cheerleaders, I don't know what he's doing still coaching, but they're not going to be number 1 this week. Auburn's going to probably be number 1 because Auburn's going about killing people, and of course they have. You don't like their coach either, Rich, and you don't like the Alabama coach, and they might have the best team of all of them. But
the Alabama coach, I like him. No, I do like him. I'm not a fan of, Calipari, you know that, and I'm not a fan of Bruce Pearl.
That's Arkansas. They're getting blown out by these teams, so he's not going to finish very high in that league. But it pains me to say this, but Duke has already, they beat Pittsburgh the other night like a drum, and Pittsburgh's probably the second best team in the ACC. That's how bad the ACC is. I mean, I think. I'll tell you right now, I think Duke is go undefeated in the ACC, be number 1 seed in the tournament, and, might win it. I mean, this guy, I hate to say it, but the 17-year-old, whatever he is Cooper Flag is terrific. He just really is. I got it. And they've got 4 starters that are playing the NBA, right away, Rich. The big center is going to be really good. He's raw now, the freshman. Right. And they have the other Knipple, the shooter, and they got another guy named James who's built like a fullback, and they're all freshmen. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And they really have. I mean, Bob, you're shaking.
I'm shaking because you just said.
I know
that Duke was the best team in the ACC, and that this kid was the best player in the. You just. I mean, they're gonna ask for either more money or for you to turn in your key to the Carolina arena.
Well, I'm just trying to be objective, and nobody remembers this, but they've beaten Auburn. I mean, everybody, Auburn's going to be number 1, and they've beaten Auburn.
That's right.
It kind of went under
You did used to write objective articles.
Well, no, I wrote objective, but I mean, they're really really good. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised seriously if they, went undefeated in the conference, which means they're not going to lose again. And, I don't think we can beat them. We being UNC. I mean, we'll play them tough, but I don't see how we can win that game. Of course, we beat them last year. We beat them twice. So Rich, there's that.
So if Rich doesn't like all these coaches, who do you like, Rich? Who's your favorite college coach right now?
Curry makes it sound like there's only 2 coaches, Calipari and Bruce Pearl. I'm just not fans of them. That's all.
Oh, no.
I have one. Oh, I'm sorry.
There's a third coach. Let's go one more.
Here we go. I'm going to read these quotes, and you guess.
Yeah,
you tell me
give me,
who it is.
I know who you're talking about. Go.
We're soft. Don't tell me you want to win. Every day I have more passion and energy in practice than over my players. It's really hard to coach guys who are delusional. Who is that?
That's got to be the coach at UConn, right?
No. Curry.
UCLA.
That's right.
Nick Cronin, our boy Nick Cronin. Our boy Nick Cronin of the MFers on the court, every other word. And this press conference he did after the game, he got dumped on by Michigan the other night
at home,
and that was his post-game press conference. Rich, all those comments, and it was a lead story. It was a lead story in ESPN all day today, showing this stupid guy's comments. Yes. He also said, Rich, I don't need this. I've won almost 500 games. Right. I'm only 53, and I've won almost 500 games. This guy? I want to kill this guy. And he didn't utter one MF, even though we know that's all he says on court and in the locker room. He must kill his guys in the locker room. If he kills them out in public.
How could you play for that guy? Or how could you be his assistant? I mean, he threw the assistants under the bus too.
He threw them exactly. Yeah, and he said, my guys are delusional. They don't know. They think they don't know how bad they are. I mean, oh my goodness. And he kept on and on. They didn't even have to ask him any questions. He kept talking.
How do you ask any questions after that?
Yeah, but
Yeah,
when you say
yeah,
I'm 53 years old, I went over 500 games. What does that mean? What does
yeah.
that mean? Does that mean you're
You
a
know what
great
it means?
coach?
It's Mike Gundy. I'm a man. I'm 40.
And he did say, Rich, you're right. He said, in every day in practice, I'm the toughest guy. I'm
Right.
the most passionate. I'm the most, I have the most energy. I have the most
Energy.
pride. And that
Right.
can't happen. He's right. That can't happen. But Jesus, don't you keep that in the locker room, Rich?
Absolutely. Without a
I
doubt.
mean, come
Without a
on.
doubt.
Jeez.
I can't imagine those kids coming out and playing for him. I really don't. I don't. I'm shocked that anybody goes to UCLA.
He's
Who
so
would?
pathetic. How the UCLA brass, of course, he's winning. He's winning. But
Yeah.
how the UCLA, if he ever starts losing, the UCLA brass is going to get rid
He's
of this guy
gone.
so
He's
fast.
gone. They should
He's
get
such
rid of
an
him now.
embarrassment. He's an embarrassment to the university. He
Well,
really
when he
is.
starts yelling at his assistants and using the F word at his
Yeah.
assistants, it's ridiculous.
And
How the
we've seen that. I watched him, in our game being he lost to us in New York. He beat Gonzaga right before this stretch of losing. He
yeah.
lost to some other Big Ten team after Gonzaga. But let me tell you what Gonzaga did. They lost to UCLA in Los Angeles. It was not before their charter almost. Did you read this? It almost collided on the
Yes,
runway
right.
because
Yeah.
they didn't obey the orders of the guys that were leading. They almost crashed into a plane. The Gonzaga charter. Of course, the name of their charter airlines is Key Lime. Key Lime Airways. I don't think I'm flying that airline, Key Lime Airways. Key, Key Lime.
So do we throw the airline under the bus for that one, or do we
For
throw
sure,
I
Gonzaga?
absolutely.
would. But you're right, Rich.
He's a
Good for
nut,
you to nail Cronin.
he's a
All right.
nutcase. He's a
Yeah.
nutcase.
He's a great place to stop unless you guys have anybody else you want to throw under the bus. Let's wrap things up.
I think that's the guy I want to throw under the bus.
I
Cronin's
got
pretty
one
good.
other.
That's a
I
pretty
got
good
one
one.
other. Since
All
I
right.
praised Duke so much, I got one other that has to do with Duke. My new favorite name in college basketball is Blue Kane. It's a kid named Blue Kane. He plays for Georgia. He had a big game the other night when they upset Kentucky at home. He had 15 and 8 rebounds. Blue Kane. He's a 6'5" guard from Knoxville Catholic. But the thing is, his name is Blue. Get this, because his dad was a golfer at Duke. And so he named his kid Blue for the Duke blue color. Oh my God, I threw up. This guy was my favorite player, and all of a sudden I read that.
Does he got a brother or sister named White for the other
No,
color?
Jesus. I mean, that's terrible. That's a disgusting story.
That's as bad as Matt
Kuchar.
Kuchar naming his kids after the arenas in the ACC. He's got a Cameron and a Cole, and I think the other one is named Carmichael. But
Or Dean Smith Dome.
Well,
or Dean,
speaking of which, we didn't bring when you're talking about this NBA game. We didn't bring up your boy Bob, Jimmy Butler.
Yeah.
What a show is he putting on?
He is putting on a huge one. By the way, Cleveland at halftime by 3. But
nice.
I mean, are we tired? Are we tired of Jimmy Butler playing his way off of all these teams?
Yeah.
And now he doesn't want. He said he's lost he wants his joy back, and he can't get his joy back in Miami. The best part of this was, he changes his hair color all the time. He has a different he has different color hair every time he does the press conference. And I read he matches his hair color with the teams that he's been talking about going to. Like he goes blonde. He goes blonde for Golden State, red for the Rockets, blue for the Mavericks. He goes orange for the whatever's orange. And his daughter, he claims his daughter picks out his hair colors. And he was talking that day, he was in purple. And what's purple? Purple's the Lakers, right?
Right.
He winds up with the Lakers.
Where does he end up?
I don't know. Well, what he should do, I know where he's going to end up. He should concoct his hair into an antenna. because that's where he's going to end up in television, broadcasting with antennas. Then he should do his hair like an antenna. That'd be great.
Well, and there's your bold prediction. Not that Oklahoma City or Cleveland will be in the finals, but that Jimmy Butler will be in the finals, sitting behind the microphone.
Right. Yeah.
Doing somebody there. All right, guys. It's been a great show. A lot of fun. We'll do it again next week. We won't wait so long to do another one. For Rich Basirico and Curry Kirkpatrick, I'm Bob Stevens. Thanks so much to Justin Jarrett, our great producer, and to the folks at Hudson's on the Docks. Visit them the next time you're on Hilton Head Island, but don't do it in the next couple of weeks because it's going to be cold. Wait until February. Come down and play some golf. We'll see you then. Take care.
See you guys.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Under the Bus is a production of the Loco Media Network and is filmed on the Hilton Head Island campus of the University of South Carolina, Beaufort. The executive producer is Justin Jarrett, with assistance from Trey Ramsey, Mahogany Hickman, and Adam Carroll.